Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. I know you know that, but I just like to remind myself of how grateful I am to be sitting here in this chair. Folks, if you're not out there doing everything that you're doing, the liking, the subscribing, sending me the DMs, everything else, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So I really do appreciate you listening. When we made the move to 7 days a week in terms of content, I thought I was crazy. A lot of other people thought I was crazy, but not you guys. You folks who are listening out there, you've turned our Sunday episodes into some of our best. And man, I cannot thank you enough. Now, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what time it is. Got to pay a couple bills and get a sip of my preferred beverage from the IU cup. It's back. Don't worry. Oh my goodness. Oh, fantastic stuff. That's right. And it's Freedom Hill Coffee, guys. That's right. At a Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. It's an absolutely fantastic cup of coffee, and they do all the right things for all the right reasons, including supporting veterans, which you guys all know are incredibly important to us here at the Power Man Podcast. If you're a veteran out there, folks, I want to thank you and your family for everything you've done. The only reason that I get to sit here and have an opinion at all, especially in today's world, is because of the stuff that you folks have done for us. I am eternally grateful. So is my family to you and yours. Folks, and so is Freedom Hill Coffee. Look them up, Freedom Hill Coffee, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, and tell them Power Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me here. Oh boy, that is the stuff. That's going to get me through the day, guys. I'm telling you right now. Only 10 interviews to go after this, so I'm going to need maybe 3 or 4 pots of this, but we're going to do it. All right, here we go. Our guest today is in the right spot. Let me just tell you, he belongs on this podcast. He is a fatherhood pioneer and a men's health expert, amongst other things, like, I don't know, an author and a podcast host and all kinds of other stuff. We're going to hear all about him and his not for profit that he's got. And I believe it's called healthyman.org, if that's correct. But if I'm wrong, he'll correct me in a minute. Please welcome to the show, Armin Brott. Armin, how you doing, brother?
Well, I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be with you. I wish I was a coffee drinker. You made it sound so great.
I wish you were too, because then you could support our sponsor.
I
It all works out.
can share my glass of water
There you go. All right. Hey, hydration's important.
here.
That's it's funny because I keep talking about, my health and everything, and I'm supposed to be drinking that gallon of water every day. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
if you mix it with coffee, I drink probably 2 gallons of water a day, but apparently that doesn't count. So I'm not sure how to
depends on who you
giggle.
talk to. A lot of people say it counts. Anything that's wet helps. Yeah.
There you go. Armin, I appreciate you being on. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're about, and what brings you here today, man.
Well, I think the one thing that you left off was actually something I didn't realize was important to your listeners. I'm a Marine Corps veteran.
Oh my goodness. Thank you
In
for your
addition,
service, brother. I had no idea.
oh, I didn't contribute too terribly much. I was between wars and came out without seeing any combat, which I think was just fine for me. I think there's some guys I met who really wanted to go in and do war stuff, and when you go in, you have a uniform in your closet, you realize that's always a possibility. But I think not everybody really wants to do the shooting part. So I was lucky that way. Really had a great experience. I was just talking to some people the other day about I couldn't it's tough. Being in
Yeah,
the Marines is not an easy thing, but I think it builds character. It was a good thing.
absolutely.
But as you said, I started off working in the fatherhood space. It started when my then wife was expecting, and I found that there were zero resources for me. There was what to expect when you're expecting, and the only thing that they had in there, the story that I love to tell, the only thing they had in there was a little paragraph about 6 or 8 lines that talked about why men have affairs during their wives' pregnancies. And I thought, well, this is not the kind of
Wow.
resource that I'm looking for. I want to find out how this is affecting me and what's going on with me and why am I having these bizarre thoughts. So I started scribbling down notes, and eventually they became a book called The Expectant Father. And then that one did remarkably well. I continue to be amazed at it. And the publisher wanted more. So we did a book on the first year and the toddler years and the school years. And I did one for single fathers, one for dads in the military about being deployed and staying involved with your kids. And so that's turned into this whole unexpected industry, just doing those books. So that's it. And then at the same time, I have because fatherhood is such has so many tentacles into your life. It's not just about the kids; it's your whole life, and being a role model and staying healthy for them is a super important thing. And so I started to focus on men's health as well. And about 3 years ago, a couple of colleagues and I started an organization called healthymen.org, well, Healthy Men Inc., but healthymen.org is the website. And we're really focusing on two aspects of men's health. One is, so they're kind of flip sides of the same situation. One is to get guys to understand how important it is to take better care of themselves. Men are about half as likely as women, even if you take out the OB and childbirth related stuff, about half as likely to go to the doctor as women are. So guys can often go 10, 15, 20 years without seeing a doctor. And women are generally continually through childhood when they see a pediatrician, right continuing right on to see an OB or to see a gynecologist, and they're getting regular care, and we are not. So we wanted to make sure that guys understand how important it is, not just for themselves, but to kind of tie back into a fatherhood thing about being the providing protector, which is such a big issue for a lot of guys, is, all right, you don't want to take care of yourself. That's a personal choice. However, I could pretty well guarantee you that your kids, your partner, your parents, your community members, they'd kind of like to have you around. So why don't you do it anyway? I know, like just take one for the team in that
Yeah.
case. Although I think that's one of the man up thing has been, I think, one of the most damaging things for men, and we can talk about that later. But so that's the one side of the coin, is giving guys the tools they need, the information they need to take better care of themselves. And the other side of it is looking at the healthcare system and realizing that the healthcare system is decidedly unwelcoming for men. The resources are not there. There is no men's health unit in medical schools or nursing schools as there is for women's health. They have a big unit on how to deal with women, how to talk to women, what are women's unique health concerns and priorities and preferences for how they like to be communicated with. They don't have that for men. They just skip right over it. So we want to educate. That's part of what we're doing at Healthy Men, is we are trying to educate the healthcare system and those who are in it, the providers, the educators, drug and alcohol counselors, athletic coaches, anybody who deals with men and boys, to get them to understand how to communicate with men and boys in a way that will resonate with them and bring them in to get them to take a more active role in their own healthcare. So that's what we're doing. And we created a course called the Certified Men's Health Educator course, which is available online. And it's you'll see it if you go to healthymen.org. Excuse me, sorry about my voice. Um, so that's been out there for a little while. We've had remarkable success with it. People are really happy with it. We have something like, we do a postgraduate survey for people who do the course, and about really and truly 95% say that it has improved their communication with the men and boys they deal with and has made their programs more accessible and more engaging for those groups. So we're happy with it. We're trying to get the group out, the education out there to more people, because it really is, it is a very important thing.
Yeah. The certification course, that's for providers that are dealing with men, or that's for
Yeah.
men who deal with men? I just want to make
No,
sure I have it right.
it's really more of a train the trainers kind of a course, is that it's for providers like healthcare workers, county healthcare workers, for example. They have got men coming into their practices all the time, or they don't. In most cases, they'd like to do a county health fair, and they do health fairs, and they find that 95% of the people who show up are women, because when men see health fair, they think, oh, that's women's stuff. And it's we can there. That's partly because of the media messages, partly because of the man up thing that's so ingrained in us. And you got to be tough, you got to be stoic, you got to not cry, not be vulnerable. So men have a tendency not to think of healthcare as something that they really should be involved in, which is too bad. So yeah, it's not aimed at individual men. We're in the process of trying to get some funding to create a course that would be specifically for guys themselves on what do you need to know about your own body.
Mhm.
Because if you turn on the tube and all the ads, there's about hormone replacement therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, ED drugs for erectile problems. It's as if every single health issue that men face is between the belt and the knees. It isn't. There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, 80% of the suicides in this country, 80% of them, that's four out of every five, are men and boys. I mean, suicide is the second leading cause of death among young men 15 to 25. It's horrifying what's going on out there as far as the crisis that we see and that everybody should see in men's health that's just getting ignored. And that's what we're trying to change.
Really appreciate your viewpoint on this and the fact that you're even working on these things. So let me just say that first. You mentioned the man up thing twice already. So I mean, obviously, this is something that's very, very near and dear to your heart, and that you are very passionate about. Tell me about the man up thing, what that means to you, and what you think the problem is there.
Well, I think it reinforces the stereotype that men have to be tough and that men have to ignore whatever symptoms they have or whatever difficulties they have. And it's another one of these things. All you turn on Sunday or even Saturday probably with the college football games. Just look at what's going on the football field. I can't remember the name of the guy, but whoever he is, there was some player last week who was playing with a broken bone of some kind. And that's just not smart. When you but that's what we glorify is these guys who are tough. They get out there and they do stuff and they take it for the team, as I said before, and then I slap myself for realizing I'm also falling into that same trap about, put your own worry about everybody else and don't worry about yourself. It's something that it comes up in so many different ways. Man up, cowboy up, whatever it is, but big boys don't cry is kind of where it starts really
Hmm.
with it.
Okay. How do you compete against that, and what do you think men should be doing besides or in place of that?
Well, I think men need to understand that they're going to have feelings, that they're going to be, that whether they want to discuss them or not, or whether they want to acknowledge them or not, the pain is still there. And asking for help this is one of the things you mentioned, veterans. There's a group called the Wounded Warriors
Hmm.
Foundation.
Oh yeah.
And I interviewed somebody from them on my show a couple of years ago, and he said something, and I think it's one of their mottos that resonated with me. It was so true that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And I think that's the message that we need to get across to many, many more guys, not just veterans, is that when you say, I'm hurting and I need some help, or you talk to your kids about the pain that you're going through because of the divorce from their mother without bad mouthing their mother, but you can talk about it hurts. It really does to end a relationship, or that something happened. You're taking care of. I'm in the middle of this right now. I'm taking care of in my 91-year-old mother, and I get home from dealing with that, and I'm exhausted. And my kids are old enough; they're out of the house. They don't have to worry about that. But if they were little, they would say, "Why, Daddy? Why are you on the couch? Why are you just staring off into space?" And, you know, and I think we don't do that. So I think the provider protector thing that is so ingrained in us, as I said before, we can use that. We can say, I need to be a model for the next generation so they don't stifle these things. Because when you stifle your feelings, you end up with what we call now diseases of despair, which are alcoholism, high blood pressure, and ultimately suicide. And so much of that that plays out by doing negative things to deal with your stress, drinking, out drugs, overwork. It sometimes can lead to interpersonal violence. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you need to be talking with things.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you
Okay.
to get back to stay on the veterans thing for just a minute. My show, these podcasts and the radio show, they're on the American Forces Network. So that's a couple of hundred military stations all around the world. And so I used to go out to Washington, D.C. They have a huge trade fair for the military, the Association of the U.S. Army. And that gave me some wonderful access to high level people in the Army and other services. And I interviewed a guy who's the sergeant major of the Army a couple of years ago. Sergeant major of the Army is the the highest enlisted person in the Army. And he was somebody who had been a combat veteran, or a combat, he was still in, so he wasn't a veteran yet, but he'd been a combat soldier, come back, had PTSD, had significant mental health issues. And instead of just burying it, he spoke with me openly and honestly about it and was saying it's a struggle and he needs to get help. And he's been getting help and he's been going to various groups and getting therapy. And then in the book that I did, I mentioned before, it's called The Military Father, a hands-on guide for deployed dads. Talked to one of the former secretaries of defense who said, this is a kind of a comical remark in a way. He said, we will no longer hold it against a service member for accessing mental health services, which is great. You think, oh, that's terrific. You're no longer holding it against them. But you just admitted that you have been holding it against them.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the fear that a lot of guys have about asking for help has been real. And we still to this day, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to get into politics, but if you remember the Kavanaugh hearings,
Hmm. Very well.
Brett Kavanaugh was angry and people criticized him for being angry because that wasn't very judicial. And they also criticized him when he started to tear up because this was so painful to him to have these accusations, whether you think they were true or not, for they were painful to him. And he was ridiculed for crying.
Hmm.
It's, what are young men particularly supposed to do? You can't be tough because that's toxic masculinity, God forbid. And you can't be vulnerable because you're a wimp. Where are we as guys? So I'm sorry, that was kind of a long-winded half answer to your question about what we need to do. But I think we need to recognize that it's an issue. We need to start asking for help when we need it. We need to accept help when it's offered. That's even harder sometimes. And we need to encourage men. If you're not a man yourself, we need to encourage men to get help and not ridicule them when they are vulnerable. That's something that I think women need to do is that they want their husbands and partners to talk about their feelings, but only if those feelings are good.
I appreciate you ending with that one because that's exactly what I was thinking the entire time you were talking. But I appreciate that very, very much, and I can tell that you're coming from a really pure place here in wanting to help men. There's a couple of things in terms of what you said that I'd love to kind of question you about because I'd love to hear your stand on it. You're obviously very well read on these things. I mean, you're an expert in this field. Um, there's two sort of large questions. The first one, and you mentioned it, if you're not a man, then you have to, do this and this and this. Men don't, I mean, there is a certain amount of, ridicule and things that can come from other men to men when,
Sure.
they admit they need
Yeah.
help. But by and large, with the men that I talk to on a regular basis in our groups and through the podcast and things like that, that's not where it's coming from. It's from the outside world. It's from their employer, like you mentioned, with their services. It's from their spouses. More than any other complaint I hear is that it comes from the spouse. And yet there's no education aimed that way. You know what I mean? So that's the first part that I'd love to, hear any ideas you have on in terms of what we can do. And the second part is that when it comes right down to it, we're told all the time as men that we are supposed to go get help, that we're supposed to reach out, that we're supposed to ask for help. And yet there's no real where do we go to get it and who do we reach out to for the help? Because reaching out to our spouse, I don't believe is the answer. Perhaps you do. And I'd love to hear your thought on those two specific questions, if you don't mind.
Okay. So I think the first one about it coming from the outside, that is that is absolutely true. As I mentioned, with the military, we're no longer holding this. So
Right.
clearly that was going on and it still is going on. There are a lot of people that are still afraid that they're going to lose their security clearance or they're going to lose their job or whatever it is if they're in the military. But in other kinds of situations, there is still this man up, take one for the team, big boys don't cry thing that just will not go away. And I think it's it's a good thing to be strong, and it's a good thing to be there for your family, your kids, and your partner, but not at your own expense, not if it hurts you. And that's one of the things I'll give you an example for when talking with young fathers is that they feel that they can't talk about their own feelings of fear about what fatherhood is going to bring to their life, or whether they're going to be able to handle it, whether they're going to be able to afford it. And so they never talk about it because they feel that they need to be strong for their partner. Or another kind of really poignant example is men who experience miscarriage in a relationship. Their partner has a miscarriage, and so people come up to him and say, "How's your wife doing? Is she okay? Does she need somebody to talk to?" And that's very nice that they're concerned about that. But what people don't understand in those situations, or they just maybe they understand it, but they just say, "Oh, that's not important," is his hopes and dreams for that baby also just went out the window. And nobody, I mean, I say this from experience, but also from having spoken with many, many, many guys in this situation. When my long time ago, 40 years ago, partner had a miscarriage, nobody asked me anything. And I'm sitting there thinking, I have already planned a career for this kid, and had all these thoughts and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and boom, they're gone. And so that is what's going on coming from the outside. That it's very present, and I think it's going to have to. Guys are just going to have to get more aggressive. I hate to use a word like that, but more proactive, we'll say, would be more gentle, more proactive about asking for help and normalizing. And it's going to start in the workplaces. That there's this expectations that men are not going to take family leave when they have a sick child, whether or sort of sick family member, whether it's to take care of a baby who's just been born or take care of an elderly parent. That tends to fall on women, and men are also having stress. So these external forces are absolutely real, and they continue to negatively affect guys. As far as where to go to, that's a great question. And I was fortunate to be able to participate in a series of webinars about this exact thing, looking at screening tools, mental health screening tools, and why men don't get the help that they need. Because when you look back at the suicide figure, I mentioned 80%, some huge percentage, something like 90% of those who commit suicide never had an interaction with a mental health person in the previous 12 months. That's stunning that they would not have had any kind of help. And part of the problem is the screening tools that mental health professionals use. There's a thing called the Beck's inventory, which is it's designed to screen for depression and anxiety, and that's one of the main screening tools that they use. That one is set up to flag things like, do you cry a lot? Do you have feelings of worthlessness? Which are generally the ways that women express depression and anxiety. They don't ask about, are you angry? Do you overwork? Do you use drugs and alcohol to cope with your
Hmm.
feelings of pressure so they don't ask those questions. And so men who have depression and anxiety and really need help, instead of getting sent to a mental health professional, they get sent to an anger management program. And and then when they express the anger, they're told again that you're being toxically masculine and all this business. So the problem is that the system just isn't set up to recognize a man who needs help. Teachers and coaches and all people like that, ministers. A lot of churches have health ministry. They're trained to look at the people in their congregations or the groups that they're working with, and to say, hey, you seem sad. Is there anything I can do to help you? That's the kind of a thing that they would say to a girl. But to a boy, they would say, "Yeah, you seem kind of angry. Maybe you should talk to somebody about getting your anger under control." Instead of exploring and seeing what that is, which is really the same sort of depression and anxiety that's coming out, but it's coming out in a different way. And if we don't recognize that men and women have different ways of expressing these things, we're never going to be able to deal with the problem. And we'll continue to have 80% of suicides be male and 70 something percent of opiate overdoses be male, and not understand what we need to do to fix it. That it's not just guys they like snorting cocaine. That's not what it is. That a lot of it is they just can't deal with the stuff in their life, and they're reaching for the nearest prescription medication or non-prescription something to help them dull the pain.
In terms of who we're supposed to reach out to,
Very
the
depressed
no,
or
I,
depressing. That's
I appreciate you answering the questions that I asked you. So thank you for that. As men work through that and they say, okay, I'm going to reach out, and they ask the question, who am I supposed to reach out to? It sounds like part of the answer is, to mental health professionals. Like I'm a therapist. Is that kind of what I'm getting in terms of the answer?
therapist would be a place to start, but not everybody feels comfortable doing that. It's not something that's really easy to do. If you have a good friend, could be something. I mean, just having anybody to talk to about these things.
Okay.
And we tend not to do that as guys, but I think we need to, as men, we need to set the example. And there was a ad campaign that I was involved in a few years ago, which didn't go very very far, but it was called "You Okay, Bro?" And it was the idea behind it was when you ask somebody how they're doing, particularly another man, ask sincerely. And when you get that question, answer honestly.
Hmm.
Because we have a tendency to say, like, everything is just fine. Great. I've never been better. Even when that's not true. And of course, you're not going to say, well, I'll tell you, life just sucks. But there's something in between. We can get used to having these conversations. I think also you mentioned not talking to the partner. I disagree somewhat. I think we need to get our partners involved because in many relationships, our partner is our best friend. She may not feel the same way. Quite often, for women, her best friend is not the husband or not the male partner, but for men, it tends to be. And so, I think if you can start having these conversations and get a sense of how far you can go and what you can talk about, and if you just can't talk about that, then you stop. But I think it's important. I think that women need to, if they want men to be different and they want to be treated in a particular way, they're also going to have to give something in the relationship, and they're going to have to learn that, if you want him to ask, I want him to ask about me and to be understanding about my issues and listen to me when I talk and not try to fix everything when I just need a shoulder to cry on. Okay, if you want that, that's great, and he should do that, but you should do the same for him too. You should be non-judgmental and listen. And that's not an unreasonable expectation. It may take a little while to work up to, but I think it's not unfair. But the therapist problem, it can be difficult because a lot of guys don't have a primary care physician. And so they would ordinarily go to a primary care physician. The doctor says, "How you doing?" And he would say, "Yeah, I'm a little sad. I'm a little depressed." "Well, let me refer you to the psychologist who's covered by your insurance program." But if you don't have a primary care person, you're not going to be able to get that referral. So I think it's even before what we try to do at Healthy Men, and just generally speaking, is to hope we can encourage guys to have some sort of a trusting relationship with a medical provider of some kind. It doesn't have to be a doctor, it could be a nurse practitioner, healthcare worker at the school you work at, counselors, anybody who's a mental or who's a healthcare provider of some kind. And if you have that, and it really has to be a relationship with somebody you feel you can actually be honest with them. and because that's going to be the source of the referrals.
All right, I appreciate your answers. The not-for-profit that you have then, the Healthy Man Inc. Um, is this what the not?
Men with a plural.
Oh, it's men, not man. I apologize.
Yeah,
Okay,
those
well,
are,
I'm glad you corrected me. I don't want to say it wrong on the podcast. All right, so Healthy Men.
yeah, yeah.
Got it. Healthy
Healthymen.org. Yeah,
Men. Got it. Healthy Men Inc. Healthy Men Inc. So that's the not-for-profit we were talking about.
yeah,
Is that the mission of the not-for-profit is to make changes in the healthcare system in this fashion, or is that something they're working on, or is it part of it? What's the overall agenda, if you will, and mission and purpose for the not-for-profit?
yeah. Well, it was the two-part thing that I mentioned earlier about giving
Hmm.
guys the tools that they need. So we've got a lot
Right.
of resources, a lot of information about how guys can be more involved in their own healthcare, take better
Sure.
control of themselves. And then the other side of it is changing the healthcare system, and trying to do something to get the healthcare system to be more welcoming. Because as we've been talking about, that they don't have the tools to diagnose mental health issues. They generally don't know what to ask about when a guy comes in for a regular checkup because it's been so long since he's been there that we don't even know where to start. They don't often tell guys what they need to know about screenings that they should be getting. And the screenings are so important because it's not, generally speaking, any number, specific number at any particular time, like what your blood pressure is or what your prostate numbers are, your PSA numbers. It's the change between a number now and a number 3 months from now, or a number 6 months ago and a number today. It's how those things change that's really the driving factor in what kind of healthcare you get. So
Okay, I
that's
got it.
to educate the healthcare providers and the system itself to say, you got to make some changes here. Otherwise, guys are going to continue to die. The average male lifespan is 6 years shorter than the average female lifespan. If that was reversed, if women were dying 6 years younger and were dying of 9 out of the top 10 causes of death in greater numbers and younger ages, that would be a major nationwide healthcare crisis, and we'd know what to do with it. I actually had a guy, the guy who runs the county health department here, tell me that. He said, "Well, give me some examples of what's a men's health concern." So I said, the things I've been saying to you, the suicides and opiate overdoses, just those two. And he said, "Wow, if that was reversed, I'd know exactly what to do. We'd mobilize the county and we'd have a healthcare crisis. There'd be no question about it. But well, it's men. Well, we don't know what to do about that." The same thing.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, the same kind of thing comes in from funders that we're, as a nonprofit, we're trying to get funding for various projects and resources that we want to produce. And so many of these people, large companies that have funded lots of women's health initiatives, say, "Well, I don't know. Men don't men don't take a role in their own healthcare. Men don't take care of themselves. So why should we advertise? Why should we support that?" Well, maybe because they don't know that it's there. It's very frustrating.
Sure, sure. I was going to ask you that actually about, fundraising, because as a not-for-profit, one of the things you have to do is raise money so that you can continue
Yeah.
to move forward and do some good work. Um, I have found in my experience that any not-for-profit that has at its core trying to take care of men in any way, shape, or form gets vilified immediately. Has that happened with you guys in terms of just, politically and culturally speaking? Because I think that's one of the reasons why, companies probably shy away. They don't want to be looked at like they're sexist because they supported some men's organization.
Well, as a matter of fact, yes, we were very instrumental in getting the American Public Health Association, APHA, which is one of the biggest public health organizations on the planet, to open up what's called the Men's Health Caucus, which is a small recognized group within APHA. There are caucuses for all sorts of different health conditions, and there are sections, which is a larger thing, and they have a very large, very active women's health thing, women's health section. And so the Men's Health Caucus is a very small group, small budget. They have an out at every annual meeting. There's a small amount of time that's allocated to their programming. So it's nice. It's great that we have that. And so who are doing research in men's health can come and present their papers. But we just heard recently from the APHA governing boards that they would like to close the Men's Health Caucus. Why? Well, because we feel that just having a Men's Health Caucus is indicating support for toxic masculinity. And it's that kind of thing that is it's so frustrating. And I hear this, I mean, I hear it constantly. Every time I do a talk on men's health, somebody, and actually my father-in-law started with this at one point. Aren't you taking something away from women's health when you're talking about trying to support men's health and get more funding for it? No. Why would you think that? It's not a seesaw. It's not a zero-sum game. And just as a response to that kind of thing, at Healthy Men, we really have internalized the message that men's health is a women's issue, and just like fatherhood is a women's issue, that when men are healthier, women are going to be healthier because they're not going to have to take as much out of their personal time to take care of a sick man. And I actually wrote a paper in a peer-reviewed journal a few years ago. And I started off, it was a little bit whiny. I have to admit. It started off something like, everybody knows in the public health space that men die younger than women do. And you know what? Nobody cares. So let's talk about how much it costs. And so I went through how much is lost in tax revenues by these guys who are dying if they would have stayed around for 6 years to pay Social Security taxes and income tax. How much more would we have for that? And lost productivity and excess payments to widows and survivors who wouldn't be widows and survivors if their husbands and fathers were still around. It turns out with all of that stuff, extra Social Security benefits, all this stuff, about $450 billion a year. That's a lot of money.
Wow.
And that's just to get men as healthy as women. Yes, we have a long way to go to get women's health. Women's health is not where it ought to be, but I marvel and am jealous of what the women's health movement has done to bring women's health to the front burner. And we can do the same for men. And it will save us money. It will save us $450 billion a year and a whole bunch of lives too. So there is so much pushback, and it's so frustrating and demoralizing, really, that people say, well, men just don't take care of themselves. They're dying younger. Oh, that's their own fault. Are you out of your mind? What do you mean? Really? You say, well, you could say the same thing about crime in inner cities. Well, it's just a bunch of gangbangers shooting each other. Who cares? You'd be on the street. I mean, you'd be canceled and
Oh
blackballed
yeah.
and everything else.
Oh yeah.
But it seems to be okay to say that kind of thing about men.
It has
And
been for a lot of years now. It has been
yeah,
okay to do
and
that.
I'm trying to change that, swimming upstream.
Yeah, but I appreciate your efforts. I really do. And the not-for-profit, I'm sure is going to help in some capacity. I mean, if you form a not-for-profit for this cause and you accomplish one thing, you've done more than, just about anybody else for taking care of men. So, I mean, I appreciate everything that you're trying to do. I know that there's men around the world who do too.
Yeah,
Let me, as we kind of, bring this in,
yeah,
getting ready to close a little bit here. I got a couple other questions for you, but there's one, and maybe you can. I don't know. We can talk about what's wrong. We can talk about what you're trying to fix with the way things are right now. The guys who are listening to this program, they hear what we're saying. They're laughing. They're going, yeah, right. This and that. And they're agreeing with a lot of things that we're talking about. But they're also sitting there alone. And they're sitting there with nowhere to go and nobody to talk to and no real path to get better. There's been a lot of loss of confidence in the mental health area with a lot of the guys that I talk with on a regular basis. That seems to be very, very consistent among guys, and especially with wartime veterans who served in battle. They seem to have just a much sharper edge about the way society's handling things right now in terms of mental health issues across the board. And there's things that are mental health issues that are being viewed as acceptable. And they know that as soon as they open their mouths, they're going to be labeled as having a mental health issue. Is there something else that guys can do? Is there a way they can approach this? Is there, can you say something to ease some of their fears? I'm just telling you some of the fears I've heard and some of the things I know that my guys are dealing with. Any little bit of help that you think you can give these guys to maybe get started. Think about something differently, maybe. Anything like that. Go
Yeah,
for it.
well, I can tell you for the veterans, I would say, and again, this comes from my own personal experience and from talking with many veterans when I was doing the book for military fathers. The VA is good. There are a lot of stories. It seems like every year there's a story about some horrible situation in some veterans hospital someplace. That's not across the board. There may be individual circumstances where it's bad, but the VA mental health, and have been on the receiving end of mental health services from the VA, is really good, and they're not going to judge you in any way. You're a veteran, you're a man. I mean, if there is a men's health medical system in the world, it's the VA. I mean, something like 85% of veterans are male, so they have a better sense of how to deal with men. So I would not hold back out of fear of being judged. So there's that. I think again, as we talked about a little bit, I would recommend talking with your partner about this. That sometimes having your partner advocating for you can be more powerful than advocating for yourself. That a lot of people will hear from her, and she may be able to have access to getting you the kind of help that you need without you having to go and ask for the help directly yourself. I remember hearing such poignant, really heartbreaking stories from women whose husbands had come back from combat, and they would say things like, "You know, my husband is standing in the living room, and our 2 year old daughter comes running up and hugs daddy from behind because she hasn't seen him for a long time and she missed him, and he turns around and he's about ready to throw her out a window." Or we're in traffic and there's a car in front of us and a car behind us and a car next to us, and I can see my husband starts sweating. Or somebody slammed the kitchen door and he dove under a table. What do I do? And women are feeling this. I don't want to say as much as the guys. It's a different kind of fear, but they can be incredibly powerful advocates for us. So talk to her. Let her know what's going on, and that you need the help and you need her to be there for you. And if she can't do it, okay, we don't want to try to be judgmental about that. But so there's that. But I think at some point you just have to say, I need to do this, whatever I'm doing now, whether I'm doing nothing or whether I'm self-medicating, it's just not working. And it's damaging my mental health, my quality of life. Life isn't fun right now. What's the point of living? If you get to that point, you're in serious trouble. But it's not helping my relationship with my partner. It's not helping my relationship with my kids. It might have even led to a divorce or estrangement from my kids. This just isn't working. I'm going to have to do something and ask for help, even if it hurts. That so let them judge. Fine. If people want to be jerks and judge me, screw them. I'm going to do it anyway because this is what's important to me. I need to be here. I need to have a better quality of life than I'm having right now. We can't change everybody. That's the business that I'm in, trying to change the world. It's a slow process, I'll tell you. But I think the change also has to come from within. That's why we're working on at Healthy Men. We're working on changing the system, but also educating guys on why they need to take better care of themselves and how to do it, so we can hit the problem from both ends and have better success at it. And then when you realize there's also this ripple effect that you may not be aware of or may not care about for the moment, which is when other men see you asking for help and accepting help, they'll feel a little bit better about doing it themselves. So it's not only asking for it, but it's also to with the friends that you have or the guys that you're communicating with online, talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you think the most recent Olympics, I remember a lot of talk about Michael Phelps having anxiety issues, and it's not talked about a lot with guys, but it's getting to be a little bit more out there. So the stigma may not be quite as bad as you think it is. It's there. There's no question about it. There's going to be some bias, and there's going to be some idiots who are going to make fun of you. And you know what? Yeah, the hell with them.
I appreciate your answers as always. I really do appreciate you fielding all the questions I threw at you too today. Thank you for that. Armin, how can people reach you, find out about your not-for-profit, Healthy Men Inc.?
Yep.
Reach them, reach out for their resources. Give us that contact info.
Oh, so any fatherhood related things, you could go to mrdad.com, mrdad.com. There's all books, tons of podcasts, lots of columns. There's nothing that you have to pay for there. And Healthy Men, MEN .org is the website for the health related stuff. And either one of those, you can drop me a line through there. Armin at Mr. Dad or AB at healthymen.org. If people want to send me something directly, glad to communicate with people and help any way that we can.
Wonderful. Listen, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for men and everything that you're going to do, because I know this project is far from over. So,
Wow.
as we kind of wrap things up here, I want to give you the floor for a minute. If is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there anything that maybe we talked about you want to double down on, or maybe just a final thought for everybody who's listening? It's all yours.
Oh boy. No, I think you asked a lot of great questions. I think we covered a lot of territory. I think the most important thing is take the first step. And I talk about this a lot in the classes that I teach for expectant fathers, that I taught for expectant fathers. And my parting shot to them was the only way that you're going to be a competent and confident father is just to jump in and start making mistakes. You're not going to get everything right the first time, but that's the way that your partner got good at the whole mom thing. So that's the way you're going to get good at the dad thing, is by just doing stuff. You'll make mistakes, you'll get up, you'll dust yourself off, and you'll keep on doing it. Same thing applies to your health. Is okay, if you haven't been to a doctor for a long time, you know what? You may be a little bit afraid of what the doctor's going to tell you. Well, get over it. You're gonna because you gotta do it. You'll have a much better chance of having a long, healthy life if you get caught with high blood pressure instead of if somebody has to try to revive you from a major heart attack. So take the first step, even if it's a little uncomfortable.
Great parting thought. Appreciate that, and a great way for us to close. So, fatherhood pioneer, men's health expert, and founder of the not-for-profit Healthy Men Inc. Armin Brott. Armin, thank you for coming on the show and sharing everything you did, and for giving everybody a place to start. Appreciate you very much.
Thanks, Roy. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Folks, that's been another awesome episode of the Power Man podcast. The reason we bring these powerful men on here with such powerful messages, especially today for our veterans and for men out there who are suffering, folks, is because we are united in you regaining your power and in you becoming a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, a better husband, a better father, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter. It's because you have value. And it's because you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.